Hello, pocket knife community, knife lovers, knife enthusiasts, interested viewers. I want to do this initial impressions on the Miguron knives Arma. Knew this was coming. I do like the way Miguron, when they put out their premium knives, they put it in a different type of box. Cardboard is much thicker. It has like this coffin type tray here where you can pull it out with a tab. It's not just a regular box. That's nice the way to do that. This is the Arma. Got this a couple of days ago. Been carrying it for a couple of days. Wanted to carry it and use it lightly, obviously, for a couple of days before I spoke about it. Yeah, so let's get into it. So what's the deal with this knife? So basically, looking at this knife, especially from this perspective, from this vantage point, it looks like a regular a regular titanium frame lock. It's not until you turn it on its side where you see its massive thickness and its 1/4-inch blade stock that you realize that you're dealing with something that's not quite the norm of your everyday average pocket knife. Since we're talking about size, let's talk about its size. Okay, let's start with that. And the Arma overall length is 8.5 inches, 8.58 inches. I'm going right off the website. Blade length is 3.75 on the blade length. The thickness is, like I said, 0.024, which would be, a 1/4 inch thick. They use M390 steel, black satin finished blade, drop point style, heat treated to an HRC of 59 to 61. The handle length is 4.58. Handle material is titanium, sandblasting. It's a manual knife made in country of origin, China. And this one doesn't say who the designer is. The Arma said the designer's name, and it was Sam. But we don't have that on this one. Before I even get into this review or initial impressions of this, Migon knives is sort of, it hasn't been around forever, right? This is just I'm not sure when they started Migon, the origin. I haven't researched it. I haven't cared to. We know they're a relatively new company. But I do want to say that they're not. Migon Knives is not. I don't know who Migon Knives is. But they make knives too good to be a new company, or maybe a new brand. Well, you know what? Let me rephrase that. You could be a new company and have a lot of experience making something. Okay? They're not new knife makers. Whoever they are, right? They have experience in making knives. A lot of it. Okay? So it's not like, a company that's just starting out making knives and they send their prototypes out, and the reviewers out there, the professional reviewers out there, take a look and they kind of critique it and they send it back. If you fix this, if you fix that, that whole thing. It's definitely not. It's definitely not that. So you might be a new company, but you ain't new at making knives. That's for sure. Not with the stuff you're putting out. I now have 4 Migon knives, 2 Moyals, 1 Mero, and the Arma. And this is from the more budget line. These two, they're the same knife, just different, coating on the blade in color G10. but I like the knife so much I got 2 of them. And you know, so yeah. Anyway, let me stick with my review of this knife. So yeah, so those were the dimensions of the knife. Also, taking a look at it, you know, the blade is, like I said, it's a drop point blade, saber grind. Um, you know, it's got really, it's ridiculously thick. It's got very good jimping, just like the Miro. Actually, the front flipper has very good jimping. You don't get to use it when you're actually, you know, using the knife in that respect. In the deployment, the jimping comes into play dramatically. It helps you really deploy the knife, but once it's deployed, you can't really feel it on the back. Having a regular flipper tab and not a front flipper, the Arma, the jimping is something that is that you can access using the knife, and it's in a very good spot. So when you hold it and you put your finger right on the jimped area on the blade, it feels excellent. Moving to the forward finger choil, right? Moving to the forward finger choil, I would say that the jimping's a little far back for it. It'd be nice if it was maybe a little bit further up, or there was additional jimping, or there was more jimping, but you don't really need it. I mean, with this thick, ridiculously thick blade stock, using the front choil is an absolute pleasure. And speaking of the front choil, it's excellent. One of my criticisms of the Miro was that the front choil was much too small, and it also had a sharp edge inside. No such problem with the Arma. I would say for a knife this big, it could have had a bigger choil. Doesn't need one though. It's very generous, very nicely chamfered off, knocked down edges, just comfortable, very comfortable. Okay, that's where that choil is. So yeah, no, it's excellent. It does its job extremely well. Moving down to the yeah, let's go. Let's start off with the show side. It's got a captured main pivot, just like the Miro. Beautifully done. Nice, beautiful transitions to the milled pattern on the titanium. Excellent. Yeah. So the screws, I think, are T10s all the way around, which it should be because this is an absolute massive knife. And I think it's a T15 main pivot. It is. I will say, well, I'll get to that after. Yeah. So that's nice. Nice hardware. The lock bar insert / overstop is a T8. Yeah. So this humongous knife has all, you know, upgraded hardware, as it should. A knife this chunky, this thick should have hardware the size that it's on there. So yeah, the tolerances on this knife are absolutely excellent. The blade is not 100% centered. It's about 99% centered. Which, you know, actually, I don't even want to say, I shouldn't even have got into that yet because that was going to be one of my negatives. Either way, the pocket clip is excellent. Really good. Like I said, I carried it for 2 or 3 days, in and out of the pocket very well. The lock bar reliefs, the tuning, if you will, are also very, I would say, these are a little, not little, the edges aren't as hard as with the Miro. The Miro, this is like some really hard edges. It didn't cause a problem using it. These edges aren't quite as hard as those. They're chamfered a little bit better, I would say. So there's a little bit smoother transition when you rub your finger down it. Neither one posed any problem at all from a functional standpoint. The backspacer is absolutely massive, enormous, huge. uh, yeah, but with the handles this thick, you want to have a backspacer thick like that, because you definitely want to make sure that you don't have access to that blade. So yeah, you definitely want that to run the full, almost a full gauntlet like that. Flipper tab and the action are extremely nice, especially for a blade this huge and this thick. It is absolutely surprising how well the reverse flick is on this. It feels like a knife. It feels like any other knife with the reverse flick. Very satisfying. The flipper tab also is excellent. You're not getting push button, but light switch is fine. I use wrist with all my deployments. You know, I don't have to. I just do. It's just a habit. You know, but just putting it out there. You know, I could do it without wrist, but I always just add a little bit of oomph to my deployment. So, but yeah, very nice. Very nice deployment. Very nice action. Yeah. These cavities on the scales on the sides are a very nice addition to this knife. Not just from an aesthetic viewpoint, but also from a functional viewpoint. Using this thing for the last couple of days, its weight, its heft, over half a pound this thing weighs. You realize that you almost need these cutout reliefs, because when you deploy the knife and then you kind of retract the blade, and if you're holding the knife in this manner, the weight of the thing is constantly pulling down on you. It really is. And the operation of frame locks requires that you don't put your fingers on the lock bar when you're operating the knife at any time. I mean, if you got your fingers here and you're trying to deploy the blade, it's a contradiction. So you kind of want to hold these knives back here. This is the area where on the lock bar side, you're holding the knife. You're literally holding it in this manner. So having these 4 per side, 8 cavities on this, the cutout reliefs, is an amazing asset to the knife, because it really allows you to hold on to it. And unless you've handled a knife this heavy for an extended period of time, you might not understand what I'm saying. You might be listening to me going, what's the big deal? But I'm going to tell you right now, it's a big, heavy knife. And you flick it once or twice, it's no big deal. But at the end of the day, when you keep doing it, you start to feel the weight of it. You do start to feel the weight of it, but that's what it's about. So that attribute is a very good quality on these big knives to have. Is these I wouldn't even want a knife this big unless it had this feature, because it really helps you when you're holding it to really grip on it so you don't drop it. That's why I keep saying, Miguron, I don't know who you think you're fooling. This is not, you're not new at making knives, but they might not have ever said they were new at making knives. It's a new company, or a relatively new company, compared to some of the companies that have been around forever. But yeah, they're definitely not new at making knives. They know too much. The negatives was, like I said, the blade wasn't, I don't feel 100% centered. I could be exaggerating. So I attempted to take a couple of screws off and just move it over. I was able, these were kind of loose on the body side here, that wasn't a problem, but I actually wasn't able to loosen the main pivot. I stuck this humongous T15 in there, and I really pushed it hard to make sure, nothing's stripped or anything, and I was not able to move it. Now, can I get that off? Yeah, I can get it off. All I gotta do is heat it up and I'll get it off. But I'm not doing that right now. It's a new knife. It's not that bad. I don't even know. I think I might even have fixed the problem, because I did take these two off, put a card in here, and then retighten it. So it does look, it does look good. I love the way the lock bar comes down on the blade once you're in the lock position. It makes the tolerances of this thing look so insane. It looks like it's touching, and it probably is, but it doesn't matter, because as soon as you deploy the blade, you can see the lock bar move right off of there. That little movement, boom, moves right off, just like it's supposed to. Operation is really good. Access to the lock bar is excellent. Tuning of the lock bar is excellent. Yeah. So I was going to complain about that blade, which is, come on, man, what are we talking about here? It's almost like I feel like I'm trying to find something where I can say is a negative on this knife. And honestly, I don't have a negative. I really am going to come out and say it. I personally don't have a negative on this knife. The things that you would complain about, you shouldn't be complaining about it, because that's why you bought a knife this big and heavy and ridiculous. I will say that I am going to do a video in the future on overbuilt knives. I want to contribute to the definitions of that, because we need to really rethink that overbuilt statement. A Hinderer XM18 3.5 is overbuilt. This is an overbuilt knife, okay? Right? That's what this is. It's very stout, very well built, overbuilt knife. This is a cartoonishly overbuilt knife. That's the difference. One's overbuilt. Overbuilt it's just too broad at this point. I mean, when you're talking about the difference in blade stock thickness, when you're talking about the Hinderer, the thickness of the body itself, when you put them together, you can see that there. Basically, the Hinderer is this scale, and the backspacer is the Hinderer. Everything past that is this knife, right? So, yeah, that's basically that. And the Hinderer is already a ridiculously overbuilt knife. Already. Oops. Yeah, ridiculous. So, yeah, I think, we need to revisit, what that how we actually categorize that. I first saw this knife a couple of weeks ago on Stasa 23's channel. I was watching YouTube, and he was doing a review on these two knives, and that's the first time I ever saw both of them. When I saw them, I knew I wanted them. Just watching them. I mean, his reviews are excellent anyway, but just seeing them, I knew I wanted it. Like, I know what I want in knives. Like, I see new knives all the time. I don't just run out and get them. But these two, when I saw them, I knew I wanted them. And I was right. They are both extremely good. Extremely good. Yeah, that's all I got, really, for this. So there's no, listen, if you want an 8.5-inch knife that weighs a half a pound, then this is the knife you buy. I will also say that, before I get out of here, I would also say that in the styling of this knife, another reason why I knew I wanted it, I think from a lot of the other cartoonishly overbuilt knives, what separates this knife. Listen, there's stuff out there that I see all the time. I don't own a PMP. I don't own a Medford. You know, PMP's got all those crazy big, you know, Kodiak Alpha Bs. Rah, 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 rah. You know, they got a lot of big, heavy, ridiculous stuff. So if you're into that, then I guess, you know, that's something that you can, you know, should be looking at, whatever. For me, I find it like, it seems like to me that whenever someone designs a big, heavy, overbuilt knife, it always has to have some type of archaic, medieval look to it. For me, the first company I've ever seen with a cartoonishly overbuilt knife that still is elegant, that still looks very refined. It doesn't look like something that you'd be carrying in the apocalypse. Like the end of the world doesn't have to happen to want this knife. Matter of fact, from the side, it's a completely normal knife. It actually, you know, the length of it, you know, it's not longer than the Recon 1. The Recon 1 is huge compared to this knife. We don't call the Recon 1 cartoonishly overbuilt, right? Because even though the Recon 1 is just tremendous, it's narrow, it's not, you know, it doesn't have the dimensions of something like this, you know? So it puts this knife in a very unique category. That's why I knew for a fact when I saw it, I wanted it. And I'm very glad I got it. And if I wasn't a content creator, I would still have this knife. Yeah, this is one that I'm gonna like a lot. When I do my 2024, the end of the year, my favorite top 10 knives, this will be in my top 10, definitely. Will it make the top 5? I don't know. Jury's out on that one. I doubt it's gonna dethrone my champion, but you never know. I really like this thing. Sounds crazy too. Whew. I don't know how. Let me see. When I watch this back, I'll see how that sounds over the camera, but in person, man, it sounds just absolutely, you talk about satisfying. Sheesh. Yeah. Yeah, man. Miguron does it again, you know? They really, they really, they really are, some knife makers are making really good knives for Miguron. Or Miguron's making really good knives. I'm not saying they're not doing them. I'm just saying it's not a new company finding their way in the dark with knives. Oh, no. No. Absolutely not. You know, excellent work. All right. That's all I got. Thanks.